Good evening and welcome to this year's Vision Awards, Reimagined. My name is Sabrina Villanueva with Kleist Properties. I have the pleasure of serving as the board chair for the Seattle 2030 District. I would like to start this evening by recognizing that we are on Indigenous land. Seattle is the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people who lived here for thousands of years, and it is still home to many Native Americans. This evening, we are joined by people from all over the US, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land. Thank you all for being here to support the Seattle 2030 District, particularly in these unprecedented times where we all have had to adapt to a virtual world. Tonight, we are still going to bring a great program that celebrates those whose contributions are making a difference in Seattle, our communities, and the environment. We are not only reimagining the Vision Awards in a virtual world, but we are also reimagining what the future of Seattle will look like if we are successful in our fight against the climate crisis. We have an inspiring keynote speaker, Jamie Margolin, a climate activist who started the 0 Hour Project at the age of only 15 and is the author of her new book, Youth to Power. In addition to presenting our annual Vision Awards, we have invited this year's winners to participate in a great panel discussion tonight. We have many ways for you to support the district and its work to fight climate change. You can, of course, donate throughout the evening by following the link on your screen. It can also be found in the chat box. We also have our silent auction, which will stay open for a few days after the event. We have some great items available, including a 2-day luxury mobile hotel stay from Cabana, a bolt from the original Space Needle with the letter of authentication, and a Patagonia travel set. Last but not least, we have our raffle. Thank you so much to Alaska Airlines for donating 2 round-trip tickets anywhere Alaska flies. If you're anything like me, you already have your next trip planned whenever it's safe to travel again. Please use the chat function now and tell us where you would go. To buy raffle tickets, please click the link in the chat. With all that's happened this year, we know that money is tight. If you can, a donation of any amount will have a cumulative effect on the amount of work we'll be able to accomplish in 2021. As you know, there's still so much work to do to heal the environment, and we need your help. To kick us off this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director for the Seattle 2030 District, Matthew Combe.
Thank you, Sabrina, and welcome everyone to this year's Vision Awards, Reimagined for a Virtual World. A few years ago, I stood on a stage and talked about the climate crisis making natural events here in Washington and the US worse, with hurricanes hitting the southeast and wildfires ravaging the west. We said then that if we don't act now, things would get worse. And unfortunately, 2020 proved us right. Here in Seattle, we are facing 4 historic crises at the same time: the pandemic, the economic crisis, racial injustice, and the undeniable realities and threats to climate change. The question to us is simple: are we ready? I believe that as members of the Seattle 2030 District and as citizens of Seattle, we are. We have members of the Seattle 2030 District that have made large commitments to and are addressing inequality and anti-racism in the commercial real estate industry. I was so proud to see our members come out in support of the Black Lives Matter movement earlier this year after the brutal murder of George Floyd. And as an organization, we made a commitment to address equity, diversity, and inclusion within the Seattle 2030 District and to help our members along their journey as well. In the summer, we held a 2030 roundtable with our professional stakeholders to discuss equity, diversity, and inclusion in their organizations and allow them to share experiences and programs that they have implemented to address inequality in the building industry. And earlier in September, we held a training with our board of directors on gentrification and the effects that development can have on communities. We continue to work on this critical issue, but we recognize that there is a long way to go. But we can't have environmental justice without social justice. And if we are successful in saving the planet from the climate crisis, but we continue with a system of inequality, then we really haven't succeeded in saving the planet at all. The IPCC report shows that we need to get to net zero emissions by the year 2050. And to do that, it is essential that we reduce our emissions by 50% in the next 9 years and 2.5 months. The longer that we take to reduce our emissions, the more severe our annual reductions become to get to that 2050 goal, which gives us a 50% chance of limiting the temperature rise by 1.5 degrees. And buildings generate about 40% of the emissions. So the work that we all do has a direct impact on whether we will win this fight against the climate crisis. There are so many opportunities available to us now to scale down wasteful consumption through smarter building methods in new construction and retrofit improvements in existing buildings. And there is a plethora of incentives available to you all now to help pay for those upgrades. And that's where the Seattle 2030 district comes in. Our unique role is to convene real estate companies, building professionals, local government, and community partners to create significant reductions in energy, water, and transportation emissions. Our members have shown that it is possible and economically beneficial to achieve the 2030 district goals in their buildings, and many of whom have done that without burning fossil fuels. We will continue to showcase their great work and advocate for incentives that help us get to net zero. This year, we have seen the contrast of what we could have if we make significant changes now with the clean air that we all had and saw at the beginning of this pandemic. Compare that to what our future could look like if we continue on this path with the smoke-filled skies from the climate fires in Western Washington in September. This year, our anxiety is at an all-time high, and the climate crisis only adds to that anxiety. The news inundates us with a constant barrage of environmental catastrophes, and there doesn't seem like there's a way out. It's hard not to feel overwhelmed and defeated by that. But our individual actions are necessary, and they will help us in this fight against the climate crisis. But we cannot do this work alone. We want you to know that the Seattle 2030 district and 21 other districts across the US and Canada are working together to make significant environmental impact by collaborating with a network of companies and organizations. But we need your help. Supporting our organization will help us continue our work, which this year has included hosting building owner and educational events to provide opportunities to learn and share ideas on keeping buildings safe and sustainable as we slowly transition back to the workplace. We've created tools like our stormwater calculator with our partner Earth Economics to help owners envision the cost benefits of rainwater and gray water reuse in their buildings before starting a project. And we continue to work with Seattle City Light on pay-for-performance and energy efficiency as a service programs to help our building owners pay for the energy upgrades in their buildings. 2020 has been a hard year for all of us, and it's highlighted a lot of our societal problems. But when 2021 comes, we will still be in a climate crisis. And with your help this evening, we can continue our work to bring our members together with local government and community leaders to win this fight against the climate crisis. We have a great show for you tonight. we have a panel discussion with our amazing Vision Award winners to talk about their buildings, which is a little different than our usual awards presentation. We're also going to hear from some of our board members on why this work is so important to them. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce this evening's keynote speaker, Jamie Margolin. Jamie is a climate activist, founder of Project Zero Hour, and author of the new book, Youth to Power, Your Voice and How to Use It, a book that I would highly recommend to people of all ages. I am so excited to hear what she has to say this evening. I would like to thank our keynote speaker sponsor, Graphite Design Group, for sponsoring this. They have been a long-term supporter of the Vision Awards for us. Graphite is a group of experienced architects who have come together with a shared belief that through collaboration, we can more effectively produce projects that have a positive impact of everyone that they touch, from owners to developers, to builders, to tenants, to neighbors. Jamie, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Margolin and I'm an 18-year-old climate justice organizer, co-founder of the international youth climate justice organization Zero Hour, plaintiff suing my state government in Washington over denying my constitutional rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by continuing to make the climate crisis worse. Author of a new book called Youth to Power, Your Voice and How to Use It, which is a guide to being a young organizer and activist, and a film student at NYU. And I'm excited to be talking to you all today. As you know, the climate crisis is an incredibly, incredibly urgent issue. And in Seattle, we had the wildfire smoke blow over us. And this has happened a couple times before, but this year's wildfires were incredibly, incredibly severe compared to anything I think we've ever seen before. Our air quality, we're usually known for having this crisp, clean, beautiful air quality. And now there were days where Seattle had the worst air quality in the world, or was in the top 3 worst places to breathe air. And that is just, that's truly horrifying. And that shows the extent of the climate crisis and how even our little Emerald City, as people call it, like people think that, oh, it can't affect us, but it does, and it can, and it will, and it already is. Building owners have a huge responsibility in terms of lowering emissions, both in Seattle and all around the world. A lot of the emissions and a lot of energy waste comes from building. So people who have the power to update your buildings to have more renewable energy, to update how you function, can really make a huge difference. And if Seattle takes the lead and our building owners start making huge sweeping changes, not just changing a couple light bulbs, because we're past that, but like actually having completely renewable energy buildings, like buildings that don't release any emissions, because we have the technology to do that. It's possible. If everyone does that here, then we can be one of the first cities to have most of our big buildings be completely run by renewable energy. And then other cities will start to do the same and copy us and try to one up Seattle. And then it's a wonderful competition in terms of people actually trying to do the best that they can to reduce emissions and to have buildings that are not contributing to the climate crisis, but are actually helping set an example for what is possible and how we can have places that people work in and live in that don't contribute to climate change and even help stop the climate crisis. If there are spaces that you can turn into green spaces, to plant trees or plant plants on the rooftops, to actually have your buildings not only be carbon neutral, but carbon negative in terms of not emitting anything into the air, but actually taking carbon out of the air. These are all things that are possible. And these are things that, you know, if you are someone with privilege, with money, you need to be putting that money and that privilege towards change, towards making sure that the places that you own, the places that are yours, are actually taking climate action and are actually not contributing to the problem and being a solution. Everyone has a responsibility to take whatever sphere of authority it is that they have, whatever is in their power, and take climate action with what they have. So if you are someone, and the only sphere of authority you have is with your family, then do what you can within your home and your family. But if you're someone whose sphere of authority is within a building that you own or a plot of land or something like that, then you can really make an even bigger impact. this is not a moment to sit out. This is not a moment to think of what you think is popular, what would be more, I don't know. This isn't the time to think about what would be popular or what would be impractical, because the only practical thing is to save life on Earth. And so use whatever it is that you have to do what you can to reduce emissions and to even take emissions out of the air with different plants and things like that, and contributing to also reforestation and taking care of the green spaces of our area as well. Do what you can with the buildings that you already have, but also don't continue to take natural land, to take wildlife, to take land and turn that into more buildings. We don't need that. We need to preserve the green spaces that exist and make sure that they don't get destroyed anymore. And then the buildings that we already have, that have already been built, make those better, make those actually be fighting the climate crisis instead of contributing to it. I know that this is a very overwhelming year, and it can be easy to chalk what's been happening with the fires and everything to 2020 sucks, and 2020 does suck. I'll completely say that is 100% true, but a lot of these issues that we're facing are systematic and have been going on for a long time. They're just culminating in 2020, so it seems like 2020 is a problem when in reality it's all of these issues, and it's the climate crisis that has been going on for a long time. When the clock strikes 12 on 2021, these issues are not going to go away, so we have to do everything in our power to take action and to mobilize and to do whatever we can with what we have to stand up to the climate crisis before it's too late. Something that is really overwhelming for me is growing up. I'm 18 years old right now, and I started taking climate action when I was 14. Growing up with just a consistent, this impending doom of the climate crisis that it's coming over me, that it was so exhausting, and it still is so exhausting, and it's so overwhelming because I'm here at film school trying to plan for my future, trying to do the best that I can, trying to live up to my dreams. And it's very difficult to plan for your future, to plan for your dreams when you don't even know if you're going to have a livable future. And while I really appreciate a lot of the support of adults being like, yay, let's support the youth, the youth are going to save us, you also have to understand that it's not our responsibility. Like, it's not one generation's responsibility, especially not the younger generation's responsibility, to solve all of the world's problems right off the bat, to stop the climate crisis on our own. We're just overwhelmed kids. We can't do this by ourselves, and insinuating that we have to do this by ourselves is putting the world on our shoulders, and that's not fair. So while you can find us inspiring, and I'm very thankful and grateful if you do, you have to take that inspiration and put it towards real action and take responsibility and step up yourself to help us, because this has to be an intergenerational movement. This has to be an intergenerational effort for climate justice. I'm going to be completely honest with you. As I'm recording this, I'm really exhausted. I've done like a bunch of climate recordings all day, and I had digital online classes, and I have a bunch of homework to do when I get off. So, and this is a story for many, many young people who are doing the best that we can. We're quite swamped, we're quite busy, and we're quite tired, and it can be overwhelming to be a young person trying to take action in this very, very scary world. So help us out, throw us a bone, and do what you can with what you have. And this is a conference about people with buildings, and you can use that. I'm not an expert on that, which is why I'm saying such rudimentary things, because I don't know the first thing about buildings and building design, but what I do know is that there are a lot of emissions being released, and there's a lot that you can do about it. So you're the expert in your own field. So use that expertise to actually make a change and make sure that you're prioritizing climate action and not profits. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, for tuning in. If you want to stay in touch with me, or you want to keep the conversation going, I would love to keep in touch with you. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. My Instagram is at Jamie_S_Margolin. My Twitter is at Jamie_Margolin, and my Facebook is Jamie Sarai Margolin. So send me a message. And if you're interested in learning more about my book, Youth to Power Your Voice and How to Use It, which is a guide to being a young organizer for any cause, with a foreword by Greta Thunberg and interviews with a bunch of young organizers for many different causes, you can go to www.youthtopowerbook.com. Even if you're not a young person or don't have a young person in your life that you think could benefit from it, even though the book is called Youth to Power, it's actually a guide to taking action and change making for anyone of any age. So whether you're 9 or 90, the book can work for you. I hope that everyone is staying safe and doing what they can to remember that we're still in a global pandemic. So I hope that everyone is staying safe, wearing their masks, keeping their families safe, and doing the best that they can. It's a really difficult time, and so I understand if it's easy if you feel slow or lethargic, or you don't have energy, you're not working at a max capacity like you used to be. I mean, I'm pretty tired, and that's okay. Just kind of take a deep breath and take it one day at a time. And like, I think it was in Nemo where the fish was like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. That's kind of what we have to do. We have to be like Dory and just keep swimming. So have a wonderful day. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning into this conference and for tuning into my talk. Please stay in touch with me on social media and read the book if you can. And please use the privilege and power that you have within your sphere, within your career, within your community to take climate action before it's too late, because this is literally 0 hour to act on climate change.
If you're on the fence about becoming a member of the Seattle 2030 district, here's what I have to say. The climate change crisis that we face is something that we can only solve collectively. I've spoken with folks in the industry who say, well, I'm just a property manager and it's really the building owner who controls these decisions. Or I'm just an engineer and it's really the property manager who controls these decisions. Bringing all of these people to the table to discuss how to solve the problems we face in buildings and improve operations and efficiency to help address climate goals in our city is really the critical kind of linchpin to solving this crisis.
The built environment is responsible for nearly 40% of global carbon emissions, and that means our members have a critical opportunity to help solve the climate emergency.
We're on the brink of what must be a rapid and deep decarbonization journey of the built environment. We need organizations like the Seattle 2030 District that are bringing together the different stakeholders, the city leaders, the developers, the contractors, the architects, the engineers, and others who need to work together to figure out what's possible and how to make this happen quickly and effectively.
One of the main reasons I joined the Seattle 2030 board was really about the innovation that comes from a group that is passionate about sustainability and how do we want to leave the planet, in years to come. I think the main part of what is really unique about this group is the passion that everyone feels towards maintaining a sustainable future and the goal of working towards it.
If Seattle didn't have the Seattle 2030 district, I think there would be a big void. We would be missing a convener of city groups, private groups, a conduit to the building owners to give them information and education and opportunities to help improve the built environment.
Seattle intends to be fully carbon neutral by the year 2050, and our 2030 district has the great potential to be the place where all the building owners get together to make this happen on their own terms.
Hi, I'm Kevin Futhey, Executive Director of Commute Seattle, and this is Leah. We know that business as usual does not have us on a sustainable path for the future. That's why I'm excited to be a new board member this year. Seattle 2030 District is doing important work to put us on a path for economic and social and environmental sustainability.
The 2030 district has helped us redefine sustainability and helped increase our sustainability efforts within the community through influence and education. I'm very proud to work for such an organization and be part of the board of directors.
Two things motivated me to join the board of the 2030 district. First was the opportunity to work with a group of like-minded professionals towards a common goal of reducing the impact of the built environment. And second was to ensure that my effort and commitment to sustainability was on par with that of my company, Hudson Pacific Properties, and its leadership.
The Seattle 2030 district is many things to me. It's relationships, it's collaborating on policy efforts, it's celebrating our industry leaders, but it's mostly about impact.
10 years ago, we started with a group of people around a table, and here we are 10 years later with 21 districts throughout the US, 2 emerging districts, and a total combined square footage of 507 million square feet.
So if you're on the fence, jump off and join.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Fernandi, Business Energy Solutions Manager at Seattle City Light. We are very excited to be sponsoring this year's Vision Awards panel discussion. I understand we have an extremely well-deserving group of award winners to celebrate today. In fact, one of the recipients achieved energy savings of 19% in their building as part of Seattle City Light's Pay for Performance pilot program. The lessons learned from this pilot helped us to develop a full-scale deep retrofit Pay for Performance program and helped lay the groundwork for yet another innovative pilot, Energy Efficiency as a Service. We'd like to recognize the 2030 District and its membership for their continued commitment to high-performance buildings and transforming the built environment for a greener and more resilient future. Have a great evening, and congratulations to all the award winners.
Thank you, Matthew. And now it's time to announce this year's Vision Award winners. They have done outstanding sustainability work and made a positive impact in the areas of energy, water, leadership, and transportation. The first award for tonight is for energy. And the winner of the Vision Award for Energy goes to One Union Square for the work they've done participating in Seattle City Light's Pay for Performance pilot program. This pays annual incentives based on the building's energy use. They made multiple improvements, which led to achieving LEED Platinum certification, and they are now achieving a 68% reduction in energy use from baseline. That means they're overachieving on meeting the 2030 district goal for energy reductions in an existing building. Let's raise a glass for the Energy Award winner. The next award for tonight is water. The Expedia campus is the Vision Award winner for water. This 40-acre building incorporates a biophilic design that allows its occupants to seamlessly interact with the building and the open space around Elliott Bay. The campus is LEED certified and also has earned Salmon Safe certification. Very few sites within the district have the scale to accomplish so much on one site, including 100% treatment of stormwater runoff, improving water quality, and restoring the native habitat for salmon in the Puget Sound. It's exciting for us because so many of our valued members were involved in this project, including GLY Construction, who are achieving zero sediment runoff during the construction phases to go beyond code. Let's raise a glass for our award winners for water. Cheers. The next award of this evening is for transportation. The Vision Award for Transportation goes to LEED Platinum Columbia Center for the accommodations they made that have lowered drive-alone rates to 14.9% in 2020. Bike commuters enjoy bike storage lockers, showers, and in a pinch, you can rent a zip car from the underground parking garage. Cheers to our Transportation Award winners. Last but not least is our award for leadership. This year's Vision Award for Leadership goes to the Microsoft CELA Sustainability Team for their ambitious work toward becoming net negative by 2030 and removing all the carbon and electric consumption that they have emitted since their founding in 1975 by the year 2050. The company-wide initiative that launched in January 2020 will be based on science and data, accelerating ongoing technology development and investing in innovations through equity and debt capital. Let's raise a glass to our leadership winners. Cheers. Let's have a virtual round of applause for all of our winners tonight. Thank you so much for reimagining your buildings and making a difference in our environment. Cheers to everybody. And now, to hear more about all of these great projects, I will hand it over to Matthew to moderate the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina, and congratulations to our award winners. We are joined this evening by a great group of panelists to talk about their award-winning projects. First, we have Rick Mock, who is the former Director of Facilities with One Union Square in Washington Holdings. We have Josh Kana, who is the Senior Manager of Real Estate Services for Expedia. We have Jim Long, is the Senior General Manager for the Seattle Central Business District for Urban Renaissance Group and representing the Columbia Center. And we also have Fernando Reyes-Gonzalez, who is a Program Manager for Microsoft's Environmental Sustainability Team. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and congratulations on winning this year's Vision Awards. So Fernando, coming to you. Microsoft set a pretty ambitious goal earlier this year. Why was it that you decided to tackle Microsoft's carbon footprint?
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, earlier this year we announced our new carbon commitment, which is to operate carbon negative by 2030, and after 2030 really remove our historic emissions back to when Microsoft started, and remove those emissions by 2050. We really saw that as the next step in terms of having aggressive carbon commitments, carbon reduction commitments. Microsoft has had a history of ambitious commitments, being carbon neutral for its Scope 1, Scope 2, and business travel emissions since 2012. So really that was what was identified as the next step in terms of reducing our impact in our operations and bringing that Scope 3 our value chain portion as part of our commitment, acknowledging that the emissions under Scope 3 are a big and much bigger portion of our overall carbon footprint when compared to our Scopes 1 and 2. So that way we saw a way of increasing the ambition, being able to reduce our footprint, and in this case having the global impact, and engaging our suppliers and our customers and through our products to convey that same message of committing to reducing the footprint and setting again to some extent an example for others who may also be global companies, may also have a global footprint, and it is within their means to reduce their impact not only in their direct operations but in their supply chain. It is a challenge. It is a challenge for Microsoft. That we have in front of us. It seemed the right challenge to deal with at this time.
Definitely a huge challenge, but like you said, it's there are large companies that have the ability to take leadership on this, and I hope others kind of follow in your footsteps. So Josh, moving to you, the Expedia campus is looking great. I actually looked down on it from Queen Anne, so I've had a bird's eye view for the whole project. Significant consideration, I think, like you mentioned, was given to the ecological function and landscape, including the soil inoculation. That's a strategy that is pretty unique to the district and is achievable pretty much only due to the scale of the site that you have. What was it that drove that decision?
I think everything on this project started from the big picture value system and goals that we defined. And the landscape team started looking at soil from day one. It was interesting because in some ways, their concept of what they wanted to do meant we were going to be looking at every bit of the campus and not just, focused on one or two zones. So they started testing for nutrient availability and mycorrhizal activity all across. And what they found was nutrient depleted soil, but high mycorrhizal activity. And it's a very exposed site, as you can imagine, right on the water. We have a lot of wind and wave and salt, and so they didn't want to artificially create a totally different environment. They wanted to leverage the soil biology from the plants that had succeeded in these conditions. And they used that information and that data, if you will, and that the starting sort of biology from those to create a robust new topsoil. And they worked with we've had a fair number of contractors, subcontractors, consultants on this. And they worked with a local soil purveyor to really dial it in for the base. And then we have different landscape elements across the site. The design team calls it plant ecotone communities. So we have woodlands, we have meadows, we have perennial gardens, we have lawn. And depending on what that function is, they then agreed upon what that soil composition needed to be. From a maintenance perspective, we're looking at what they call a liquid biological amendment process. So we don't actually use any commercial fertilizers or anything like that. It's literally a version of compost tea, if you will, that is applied, and it varies zone to zone.
Great. It's very impressive that you're able to remember the names of all these different soil tactics. Jim, coming back to you, kind of the great work that you've done in this building, what advice would you give to other 2030 district members who are looking at implementing a commuting program like yours?
There are lots of reasons to consider pursuing, the 2030 goals, and it's important for us in the built environment to continue to be adaptive in the face of climate change and ensure the resiliency of our downtowns, of our cities. And the benefits of implementing the 2030 goals at your property not only provide these sustainability benefits, but health and wellness benefits for those who work in our buildings and live and play in the urban environment. And if that isn't enough to convince someone, there's a clear business incentive to pursue those goals as well. There are cost savings associated with many of these initiatives. And, for us, a 35-year-old building, it needed to remain competitive in the office market by finding creative ways, including alternative forms of transportation to meet the demands of our tenants.
And it's obviously incredibly important, particularly now with where things are going and reducing our emissions, because that's where most of the carbon emissions in Seattle come from, is transportation. Rick, can you tell us a little bit about what the surprising benefits might have come out of the improvements to the building, particularly around your bottom line and the environment?
Speaking about one of the benefits, certainly of pay for performance and these kinds of incentives, they validate the project, and especially when they're successful, they certainly build on the future. And I think that's something that we've been able to do at Union Square. Don't have to sell things quite so hard. But beyond that, I think there was this idea of synergy, which was a bit of a surprise. And that has been something that, when you go into some of these more complex projects like automation or some of these more complex control strategies, you're banking on making savings, but they're really hard to quantify because there's variables in the building and each building's a bit different. And I think one of the things that has come through in all of this is that there's kind of a domino effect. When you start saving energy in one area, it affects other areas of the building, typically in a positive manner. And I think that's one of the reasons why our payback's been better in almost every project that we've done. And I think part of that is trying to do a great job and be very detail oriented in the projects that we're doing. We don't just slap them in, we try to think them through and do it right.
So my next question is actually one for all of you. We'll kind of go around the world, I guess, in answering it. We had Jamie Margolin as the keynote that we've all just seen, who's, as you all just saw, a fantastic youth climate activist. What general advice would you give to some students or young professionals who want to get into sustainability in the built environment? And Rick, we'll start with you.
Well, there certainly is a need. Like I said, coming from a perspective of older buildings, that they really continually need to be updated. So I think the work that needs to be done is great. And it's rewarding. It's good for our environment. The projects that we've done have been sustainable. We've seen a constant, now for roughly 20 years, we've seen a downturn almost every month has been the best ever in one respect or another. And that's been sustainable. So extremely good for business and good for the environment. But I think what's important is success. I think being involved with, not to make these projects, not to do them in a vacuum, but to talk to the engineers and the people that know the building best, and to develop things properly, and taking the time and being detailed is critically important.
Great, thanks. Josh, how about you?
I think there's so many aspects that could do, would serve a young professional coming in well. There's a huge amount of work that still needs to happen in this field. And so there is, job security for sure, for one, but definitely that it's actually this wonderful place where the easiest stuff are just built in. So if you're going to be painting, would a low VOC paint just not make sense to start? So there's lots of low-hanging fruit along the way to just build into your practice. But as you look at it as a bigger picture, you have to understand that there are so many interplaying groups, systems overlaying on top of one another, that you are going to have a domino effect when you start in one place. So the more you can learn about all the other systems in play compared to your profession would be good. And then understanding the goals, because the goals can be very lofty, but then for you to bring them down into deliverable numbers or steps along the way, that's actually a huge part of what all of us do in this world. Is we set that out, but then it may not be a 6-month plan, it may be an 18-month plan to get us there. Or even just good data gathering, because we don't have a baseline to start from. So there's a lot of work to be done. And it's a very exciting time, I think, for young professionals to get interested in this field for sure.
Talking about baselines there, it's definitely such an important piece, is to set a baseline. And that's what I think, I'm a little bit biased, part of the beauty of the 2030 district baselines, is they're based on Architecture 2030's 2030 Challenge for Planning. And there's a lot of science behind those baselines. And if we achieve those goals, it kind of puts us on that path to climate stabilization, and is aligned very much with the Paris Climate Accord. So anyone out there needs baselines, start with those and work your way through those first, and then get more aggressive as time goes on. Jim, how about you?
Well, got to echo a lot of the sentiments that Rick and Josh have already shared, kind of on a big picture. But I think to advice that I would share would be, especially in any of these programs, whether it's energy savings, water, or transportation, establish the program and genuinely commit to it. There's so often we see things that we need to do because the market's doing it, but in this case, a genuine commitment to it, not only for yourself as a young professional, but it's touching a much bigger arena, our home here in the Pacific Northwest. And the other thing I think to go along with that commitment to the programs is the importance of partnering. As Josh said, there's so many players, so many different touch points, continuing to commit to the program and working with your peers and others to achieve these goals is going to be the way of the future.
Great, thanks. And Fernando.
Yeah, and to build on what has already been shared, I think again, this environmental sustainability piece is here to stay. Will only get bigger in the time that I've been involved with this type of reporting, about 13 years now. It started out being primarily voluntary, but that has changed and will continue to change to become mandatory, and stakeholders, investors are asking more about it, more detailed questions, and more about what companies or organizations are doing. So to anyone thinking about getting into the sustainability field, I would say there's definitely going to be opportunities, and definitely look at it from again, there's a variety of opportunities. Sustainability is present across the various departments. You don't have to be an engineer and working on a renewable energy project to have a job associated to sustainability. You can there's really sustainability in finance and accounting and human resources. So really looking at things at how sustainability is present across the different programs and teams. So I would say I would tell them to find internships related to sustainability, identify what they like, identify what they don't like, and really think outside of the box and question of why things that have been doing in a certain way, to question them and bring that sustainability piece to them, to improve the overall process.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge piece, that not everyone has to be the director of an environmental nonprofit to be doing sustainability, or you don't have to have sustainability in your job title. I think that's kind of seen on this panel here, that not everyone has sustainability in their title, but you're all doing great work to address the climate crisis. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. That's the end of our panel. Congratulations to you all again for winning this year's 2020 Vision Awards. I would like to remind the audience to donate. The link is going to be below you on the screen right now. And I am going to throw it back to Sabrina to do our live raffle drawing. So get your raffle tickets ready. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matthew. And now it's time for the part we've all been waiting for. Let's find out who won the 2 round-trip tickets anywhere Alaska flies. Raffle ticket sales are now closed, and I would like to thank Alaska Airlines again for donating to the Seattle 23 district. We have put all the names into a randomizer that will randomly select a name of anyone who bought a raffle ticket. If you bought 3 tickets, then your name is in there 3 times. Good luck, everyone. Now let's find out who won. Drum roll. Congratulations to Cassandra DeLon. Woohoo! Please, please, please let us know in the chat where you're gonna go when things open back up. Super excited for you. Congratulations. All right, to close tonight, I will pass it back to Matthew.
Thank you, Sabrina. And thank you all for being here this evening to celebrate with us in this virtual world. I would like to thank Cassandra DeLon, our raffle ticket winner, and our Vision Award winners this evening. And thank you to Jamie Margolin for being part of this year's Vision Awards. I hope that she inspired all of you to take some action. I would like to thank the Board of Directors of the Seattle 2030 District. Your support keeps this organization going. Thank you to our event sponsors, Graphite Design Group and Seattle City Light, and to our corporate sponsors, Alaska Airlines, Beneficial State Bank, Boeing, CHC, ILFI, who aren't pictured here, and Perkins & Will. Thank you to our annual sponsors, to Unico for being a carbon neutral champion, to our legacy and visionary sponsors, including N-Wave Seattle, who aren't shown here, and to Atlas Workbase for letting us use their space this evening. Thank you to our district leaders and our conservation partners. Lastly, I would like to thank our funders, the Bullitt Foundation, Boeing Company, and King County. You make this work possible. I would also like to thank the Seattle 2030 District staff, Anne Enomoto and Ellen Southard. I could not do this work without you. And thanks to all of you for being here tonight. With your help, we have currently raised $88,000. Thank you so much for your contributions that you have made this evening. It will ensure that our organization's success. And thank you for reimagining Seattle. If we all work together, we will win this fight against the climate crisis. Don't forget that the silent auction ends tomorrow evening, so get your bids in and please continue to donate. That is it for this year's Vision Awards. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a great rest of the night. Enjoy some drinks. Good night.